And I would like to invite to the stage a very interesting and unique panel put together by Yadin Kaufman, who is going to present his panelists. So give a big round of applause to Yadin Kaufman. He's the founder of Sadara Ventures and Palestinian Internship Program. Yadin, the stage is yours. You're welcome to invite your panelists. Okay. You have 2 microphones, by the way. No, wait. Switch.
Thanks. Okay, can my panelists come up here, please? We've got Ilan Paz, please. Hussein Nasreddin, Guy Shemesh, and Tali Zinger. Should we give people another couple minutes to come in, or start? Okay, we'll start. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to this panel and braving the heat here. So you've heard a lot, I guess, so far, and are going to be hearing a lot over the next 36 hours or so about the amazing Israeli startup nation, the amazing technology ecosystem that's been built here over the last several decades. What we're going to talk about is our next door neighbors, the Palestinians, who are trying to create another startup nation next door. And for those of you, how many people here are not from the region? Okay, good. So let me give you just a few words of background. And by the way, my name is Yadin Kaufman. I've been involved in trying to help start this ecosystem. Well, I've been an Israeli VC for many years, and then in the last about 12 years involved in trying to start a tech ecosystem next door. So just a few words about what Palestine is like today. GDP, average per capita GDP, is about $2,000 a year. Unemployment is about 25% in the West Bank, and it's about 55% among young university graduates. That's a very bad situation, and it's bad for Palestinians, and it creates a lot of trouble in the region generally. So what's begun to happen is people looking to copy, in some ways, the Israeli experience of this startup nation and do similar things in Palestine. And that's based on 2 things in particular. One is a market opportunity in the Middle East, 400 million people, a lot of demand for technology, but very few companies offering solutions to those markets. And number 2 is a very talented labor force in the West Bank, okay, which until recently has had to leave the country or leave their profession because there haven't been opportunities, but those talented people are now starting businesses of their own. So what you saw in the beginning was some outsourcing companies doing development work for Israeli and international companies. We're going to hear from one company that has been working with Palestinian outsourcing people. And more recently, we're seeing actual entrepreneurship, people starting their own companies and exporting products and services to the region and to the world. The big obstacle that I've seen in the development of this Palestinian tech sector is its isolation, okay? People there have, for the most part, have little or no experience working in a high-tech company. They have very few connections to the outside world. And that's why this kind of forum and connections to people from outside, whether they're from Israel or from other countries, is so important. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're very fortunate to have a great panel here with us who are very experienced in what's going on in this dynamic sector in Palestine. And I'll introduce each of them quickly, and then I'll ask each of them to tell a little bit about what they're doing, and we'll ask them some questions. I have some questions for them, and I hope that you all will think of questions also in the meantime. So to my immediate right is Tali Zinger. Tali is not Mas Dausat, who you saw listed on the panel. Unfortunately, Mas's son is in the hospital, so Tali had to pinch hit at the last minute. But Tali is the CEO of Dausat, which is a company in the wellness space that is based in Nablus in the West Bank. Tali will tell you a little bit more about that. Next to her is Ilan Paz, who after a long career in the IDF, the Israeli military, has been working for the last year and a half leading an organization called Breaking the Impasse, which Ilan will tell you, Israeli and Palestinian business people who are trying to make a difference here. Next to Ilan is Hussein Nasreddin, who is an example of the new Palestinian entrepreneur. Hussein started a company called Red Crow, which is in the security intelligence space. And at the far end is Guy Shemesh, who's a VP of the cloud business at Nokia, an example of a multinational company that has an operation here in Israel and has been outsourcing to a company in the West Bank, and we'll hear about his experience. So let me turn first to Tali, and why don't you tell us just a few more words about what Dausat does and the experience of having a startup in the West Bank, working vis-a-vis the Arab world, and what it's like being in that company.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Again, I want to send apologies on behalf of my partner, Mas. She was really very much looking forward to sharing her story and our work with you today. So Dausat seeks to be the leading wellness platform in the Arab world. We have a unique methodology, which Mas developed when she finished her studies in nutrition at university. She came back to her village and realized something that many food and lifestyle companies around the world are realizing only today, that you cannot just cut and paste the idea of food and wellness and health into a local culture. Specifically, her Arab local community, she was very into cooking and helping people be healthier. To date, more than 40,000 people have lost weight using the Dausat method. It's a points-based system. It's delivered in a group method. We offer our groups through micro-franchisees in Palestine, in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia. We're just opening offices in Bahrain. Our core team is based in Nablus and a bit in Tulkarm, and we're hiring now in Bahrain. We have a mobile app. Please download it. Tell me what you think, although it's all in Arabic. So if you have Arabic-speaking friends, please ask them to download it. We have a very active in-app social community, and we have a very active online community. We're seeking to change the way people think about wellness in the Arab world. 6 out of the 10 fattest countries in the world are in the Arab world, and the highest rate of diabetes is in the Arab world. With us, people lose 11 to 13% of their body weight, and they tend to keep it off. So we know we offer something that is a value-add solution for something that is affecting over 80% of the women in Saudi and Kuwait, and is an epidemic taking hold across the Middle East. It's also taking place in many other emerging markets. Our team is mostly in Nablus, as Yadin mentioned, is age ranging from 18 to 52. Some of them are college graduates. Some of them have not finished high school. And they are very excited. Our team is very excited about bringing something new coming out of Palestine into our world that can make such change. Some of the challenges, I'm sure we'll have more time to get to them, have to do with some of the things Yadin mentioned, the isolation, the need for significant job training, funding access. We see a huge opportunity here. There's no leader in the local market or global market addressing the weight loss crisis and the obesity crisis in the Arab world in a proactive way today. Weight Watchers is a $5 billion market cap company, and their target markets total about 500 million people. We have a market of about a little less than half that size. So it's a tremendous market opportunity, and we still see a lot of hesitation around funding. One of the angles in which we go to market is based on women's entrepreneurship around the region. A lot of hesitation around that as an issue. That said, we see our success stories and our ability to leverage the amazing moment of the internet penetration, smartphone penetration throughout the Arab world so that people can access our tools. So on one hand, it's an amazing moment of receptiveness among our consumer base across the Arab world, but also tremendous challenges on the funding and on the go-to-market stage.
Thanks, Tali. Is that mic working, by the way, or no? Okay, anyhow. Yeah, I think so.
Working?
Yeah, okay. Let me jump over to Hussein and continue on the Palestinian entrepreneurial thread for a minute. So Hussein, tell us a little bit more about Red Crow, and I'd love to hear what the experience of starting an entrepreneurial venture you're based in Ramallah. What has that been like, and what kind of changes have you seen in the tech scene there since you started the company?
Of course, thank you, Adin. I'm Hussein Nasruddin, CEO and co-founder of Red Crow Intelligence. So Red Crow is an online platform and a mobile application that aggregates data from open sources, including social media, RSS, every available source online, using Arabic natural language processing, detecting Hebrew and English as well, to allocate physical security threats. So we provide to those operating and living in volatile political environments real-time security intelligence that allocate incidents such as military interventions, attacks, potential increase in threat levels for any reason in real time. We started, me and my co-founder Layla Aqil, in 2014. In 2015, we started building our MVP as 2 people. Today, we are 13 people, including data scientists based in Chicago. Most of the team is in Ramallah, actually. And we've been serving people like Amnesty International, European Union, USAID, most of the embassies in this country, and scaled to Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, and now looking at Syria, hoping that during the coming investment round, we will be covering every Arabic-speaking country in MENA region, looking forward to go towards Latin America. So what we do is that we provide the information in a very fast manner to those on the ground, to those who are affected by such information. This is what we do today. And this assists people to maintain their safety and security and their business continuity in a very fast-changing environment, such as the region we're living in. The idea started during the Egyptian revolution, when everyone was trying to forecast what's happening on the ground in Egypt. Will the regime collapse? Will it not? Very conservative media that do not reflect what's happening on the ground, while millions are tweeting from the ground. It's not anymore who you know in that country. It's your ability to process that overwhelming amount of data coming every second. So that's what we built, an engine that processes this overwhelming amount of data from the street, allocates every threat in very fast manner in maps, statistics, and text alerts. Our goal is to start forecasting what might happen in a specific region based on the trends that our system is understanding and the triggers. So based on the historical data, now we can start forecasting what might happen after a specific political announcement and give advice based on numbers to those who have to take very critical decisions, such as evacuating or sending aid to a specific country. So that's Red Crow. And now I'll speak more about the challenges and the nature of the ecosystem in the Palestinian environment. Living in the West Bank and starting a company in the West Bank, in my opinion, it's a day-to-day crisis management mode. So we got access to 3G only this year. I don't know if it's full access yet. We've been pushing with PayPal for a year to get access to payment gateways. No one understands why it's hard, but still, even the American embassy is trying to push. And cooperating with many people to get the basics of what a startup community should have in order to build companies. I can't speak about all the issues, but I'll speak about what those issues created out of the people who are trying to build. So the fittest survive, which creates a very interesting and resilient startup community. Taxation is a big problem. The legal system is not as friendly as possible with investments. Still, all of this has been changing during the last few years with the efforts of many people, including Sadara, for example, who's one of the first investment funds that was interested in building in the Palestinian ecosystem. What's interesting, I believe, in that community is the people themselves, because you find Palestinian elements in every regional startup that made it or has been growing. People, as Yadin said, has been traveling outside the country for years to find a place where they fit, especially those who are highly educated and capable. But today, I think we're seeing something very interesting. More investment funds are becoming more interested in putting money in the West Bank because the source of that human source is clearly there. So there's less monopolization of the investment community. There is more competition. we're living again, I think, the Israeli experience in a way or another, where the diaspora is bringing back knowledge and interacting with the local community. So people, for example, one of our biggest problems is finding talent. The first thing to find talent is through the networks we have. As Yadin said, our number one problem is isolation. We're isolated physically and virtually towards the other ecosystem around. So the first thing we approach is the diaspora communities outside, and we started finding talent there. We started finding the Palestinians within Google and Amazon, and they started opening links. Still, this network is not as sophisticated and easy to use as any really grown-up ecosystem. In my opinion, the number one chance as an ecosystem that we should be able to use and we should find partners is the ecosystem half an hour away. So Tel Aviv, the Israeli ecosystem. For example, we were just referring that to seniors in Google the other week, is that we have more connections in San Francisco with people in Google there, and we know no one in Tel Aviv till recently. Through Yadin, we had the chance to meet them. But that gave me a moment to think how there is glass ceilings between us and those international players that can make it much easier for a startup to get access to know-how, funding, the proper culture, the mentoring. All these simple, basic needs for a startup to grow are very limited, extremely limited in the Palestinian ecosystem. Still, people are making it through, for example, such as Red Crow incorporating in the US in order to have an online gateway to sell, or moving outside to a nearby country and start selling from a more easy place to work with, or work with talent remotely in different countries. But people are fit and they're finding solutions. But the effort put on very basic rights that are easy to get usually is burning a lot of the resources and the efforts and the time of every entrepreneur there.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we've heard from Tali and from Hussein about the startup entrepreneurial model that's beginning to, and by the way, there are about 25 Palestinian startups now that have gotten some degree of funding. Is that a big number? No, certainly not compared to here in Israel. But let's remember that the Israeli ecosystem was also very small not very long ago, and these things can grow very quickly. Is the glass half empty or half full? The scene there is a lot more robust than it was 10 years ago or 8 years ago, and I think we can expect a lot of continued growth. Let me turn now to Guy just for a different model of Palestinian tech, or a different view on the Palestinian tech scene. As I said, Guy is a vice president at Nokia, and they've actually been outsourcing development work to developers in the West Bank. So I'd love to hear a little bit, or I'm sure we'd all love to hear a little bit about Nokia's experience working with Palestinian developers, and why. Why did you choose to go to Palestine?
Thanks, Edin. Hi, everyone. So first, a few words about Nokia. We do not make phones anymore, just to make sure everybody understands that. But if you initiate a call with your cell phone, 50% that it will happen via Nokia equipment. As I didn't mention, I'm running the cloud business unit, which is a global business unit. We have R&D centers in Israel, but also in East Europe. We have R&D center in India and in US. As in every P&L, we have need to manage our cost, and also with the growth of cloud, we increasing our capacity and capabilities over the years. Our story is fairly simple. It's about access to talent. We are increasing our R&D center in Israel all the time. We are in hiring only mode, which is not so unique for multinational companies and startup in Israel. And that's going, but what we saw is that we still need to hire more, and the Palestinian Authority gave us an opportunity to get access to additional talent. And that's what we started to do. We simply, via an outsourced company, started to hire people from Ramallah. And it turned out it worked very well, because we are doing the same hiring process. They are fully integrated to our teams, meaning that they're not just bundled to a QA or support. The actual developers in the open source community, in the core of the code on the products we are developing. And they are bringing us additional value from the fact that they are close to the office. So the proximity is something that we are leveraging. They're coming every week, once or twice into the office, working really with the teams together, and they are a totally integral part of the team. The reason that it brings so much value is, beside the fact that its access to talent is diversity. As a global company, we build in products that needs to be used by different people worldwide. Diversity is the right thing to do, not only from community value, but from a commercial perspective. It's a lot of articles. The most successful companies in the world are diversified heavily. We are not only bringing people from the Palestinian Authority, but also people from Israeli Arabs, Ethiopian, other people in Israel that are not part of the high-tech train. So that is one of the biggest value we get in. And the other aspect is about cost. There is a different cost structure that we have in different locations in the world. And one of the things we had when we imagined our P&L and our cost structure is to be able to create a different resources cost. And there is different prices for resources coming from the Palestinian Authority, as they are different prices for resources coming from India, East Europe, and so on. A lot of people are speaking about the fact that Israel has about 10,000 to 12,000 shortage of headcounts right now in any given moment. It's actually more than that. People don't understand that the amount of positions Israeli or multinational companies moving offshore to India, to China, to a low-cost location is crazy. It's simply tens of thousands of positions. So if we have that and we have the access to talent, I think for everybody it's a win-win situation. So our experience until now was simply great. We are continuing to hire not only in Israel but also in the Palestinian Authority. The team that is working as an integral part of the different squads in our organization. As more as we are bringing the methodologies of Nokia, we see also more and more people are getting to the pool of talent of potential candidates we can hire from. You done?
All right, here, try. See, maybe you're technical. Maybe you can fix that. I think probably many people here would be surprised that an Israeli company or the Israeli center of a multinational company is working with Palestinians. I mean, certainly for people here whose only exposure to the region is, what they see on TV, it's not an intuitive thing to think of or to imagine Israeli and Palestinians. You say the Palestinian outsourcers come and work in your offices a couple of days a week. I mean, how does that work on an interpersonal level? Have there been tensions or not?
Well, that's what's funny. A lot of people are asking that question, and for me, it's just bizarre because we are a multinational company working with R&D centers in Budapest, in India. The working model of distributed R&D is something that is our day-to-day. So, working with someone that sits in an office in Ramallah versus in Budapest or in Bangalore, it doesn't really matter. But to be honest, the fact that we have someone that is 1 hour drive, same time zone, same culture, obviously communication in English is just, perfect, is actually simpler. So it's not something that we had to do anything in order to change our working methodologies or speak about it with the team. It was just a work that once it started, it was simple, natural for everybody. And the result we see today, after about a year and a half that we started this program, is that we asking more and more. And actually, how funny it is, there is shortage, and we need more and more people that will be in the relevant or education level in the Palestinian Authority to just simply increase the number of employees we can work with.
I just want to press you a little more on that issue, though. What happens when there's political tension? What happens when there's violence? between Israelis, not the people working there, but Israel and Palestine. Does that have an impact on your ability to continue working?
So again, we are in Nokia selling our products to all countries worldwide, countries that we don't even have a relationship with as Israel. So having obviously in a situation of tension, people not coming to the office, that happens. But from working methodology, it doesn't really matter. We have people that are working with our product that is part of countries that we don't have any diplomatic relationship with, and it doesn't really matter as well. So I don't see, I didn't encounter any situation where we had to look into the personalities or the situation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Actually, we just had good stories. One of the funniest stories that I'm getting a picture from one of my employees is actually an Israeli Arab, and he sent me a picture of him and someone from Ramallah, and he said, listen, there was a hackathon in the Technion a few years ago, and I met someone there, and we became friends, and then I went to visit him in Nablus at that time, and in the last few years, I couldn't. And then suddenly I see him in the office as coming as part of this outsourced company. So I do see only the value. As a side note, I don't know how much you know, but in software companies, attrition is pretty high. It's about 16% in average. Community value and diversity is one of the things that helping to reduce attrition. We see that one. The amount of reduction in the attrition in our organization went to less than 5% over the last year. We believe that a big part of that was simply the fact that we managed to diversify our team and bring in people from different areas, Palestinian Authority, Israeli Arabs, Ethiopian, into our working place.
Okay, that's great to hear. That's a good segue to Ilan. Ilan Paz, as I mentioned, long career in the IDF and now the CEO of Breaking the Impasse. So Ilan, tell us, first of all, and full disclosure, I'm involved in Breaking the Impasse, but tell us what Breaking the Impasse is, what impasse are you trying to break, and how things going, number one, and how do you view this sort of business cooperation or joint work efforts, and in general the development of a Palestinian tech ecosystem and Palestinian business? Is that in Israel's interest, or is it not in Israel's interest?
Thank you, Adin. BTI, Breaking the Impasse, is an organization of more than 170 senior businessmen, Israeli businessmen, which support the two-state solution. We have our counterpart in the Palestinian side, again, senior Palestinian business people who support the two-state solution. And the two sides, the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, is under the umbrella of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Actually, our organization is dealing with the political issue, with the solution, the end state of a peace agreement between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, and we all, it doesn't matter whether we are people from the right wing of the Israeli politics or the left wing in the Israeli politics, we all believe in a two-state solution. Unfortunately, during the last few years, the political issue is stuck. There is no negotiation, there is no meetings between Israelis and the Palestinians. There is no any initiative concerning peace nowadays. We all heard about the aspiration of the American establishment nowadays, but nothing on the ground is happening. And meanwhile, we are doing our efforts in the economical issue. We are dealing especially with two main subjects. The first is the high-tech issue in the West Bank. We are doing a lot of efforts to create contacts between the Israeli high-tech area in Israel and the Palestinians, the high-tech people from the Palestinian side. As you heard in the Israeli high-tech arena, we have a lack of around 10,000 people. In the Palestinian side, a lot of Palestinians that ended their university studies doesn't have any place to work, and we are doing our efforts in order to create the contact between the two sides. Not only to create the contact, we have we are doing a lot of efforts in order to reduce the blocks, the security blocks and the other blocks concerning the ability of the Palestinian to enter Israel and to walk inside Israel in the high-tech arena. The second issue we are trying to do our best until now without any success is to help to create something new in order to solve the humanitarian issue in Gaza Strip. And because our people are businessmen that comes from the economical world, we are doing a lot of efforts to create an economic issues that will put an end or will help the humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip. If you ask me what is our successes until now, I will tell you that in the political issue, there's no success to create any kind of involvement or negotiation between the Palestinian side and the Israeli side. We started our initiative, our economic initiative concerning high-tech in the West Bank a few months ago. And we believe that in several months we will be able to show results.
And to what extent is it accepted in Israel that economic development in the Palestinian sector in Palestine is something that's in Israel's interest? I mean, does one have to be a left-winger to want to see the kind of things that Hussein is doing or Tali's working on or outsourcing activities in the West Bank and Gaza?
To the Israeli side, it is definitely clear that if the economic situation in the Palestinian side will be better, it's not only a Palestinian interest, it's an Israeli interest as well.
I have more questions, but I want to see just by show of hands, how many questions are there in the audience? Because I want to know how much time to leave. Okay, so let's start with you. Go ahead. You want to ask a question? Yeah. So you can speak loud?
You don't want to mic.
Just short questions, please. Make sure short. very quickly because I raised a venture capital fund to invest in Palestinian companies. So just, very quickly, I'd say that, there's not a lot of awareness of the reasons to invest in Palestine, or there hasn't been, or certainly when we raised the fund, there wasn't. But yet we managed to put together a fund. This is Sadara Ventures. We raised $30 million from people like Cisco and Google Foundation and the European Investment Bank, and a number of other, private equity folks, venture capital people mainly from the U.S. and Europe. So, there were some people who, who were willing to step up, take a risk, both because they wanted to generate financial return, but also because they believed very much in the social mission of activity like this, job creation, building a private sector-led economy in Palestine, and so on. So let me maybe ask Tali and Hussein, who've been trying to raise, in some cases successfully, to raise money. Just very quickly, what's your experience been as far as attracting investment at the company level for a Palestinian company?
I think raising money for any startup is very challenging. My partner and I are two women co-founders seeking to raise money for a wellness solution for a health problem that people view as a women's problem, even though 75% of the men in Saudi and Kuwait are also overweight and obese, and it's a major $17 trillion problem for the region. But we are viewed as, oh, let me show this to my wife and my daughters. Right, so that's separate from the Palestine funding issue. There are not a long list of investors like Yadin or like the Ibtikar Fund, which are invested in lining up to support Palestinian entrepreneurs. Funding across the Middle East, our target market is the broader Middle East. Funding across the Middle East has gone through a big roller coaster in the last few years for several specific regions. So it's been very challenging. We find that high net worth individuals who understand our mission, because we are a profit-driven business, we happen to improve people's lives and support women's entrepreneurship, people that understand that market opportunity, and people who are deep into the opportunity for technology-enabled services in the region are most helpful, as well as, frankly, investors in the US and Europe, who kind of get the healthcare market, who get the importance of addressing this issue, and can think more flexibly of what you can grow from Palestine into the region.
Okay, Tali covered it mostly, so I'll give a hint about our experience. In our case, it's a bit tricky because first, as I said, it's an ecosystem in the making, so even the investment environment is also in the making. And you can easily find, for example, I believe, early stage acceleration today in Palestine or specific funding. But when you want to grow, when you're looking for growth around, it's much more challenging. Second thing, I think it's a regional issue. Investors in the Middle East, Arab investors, are still much less towards venture. So they would prefer investing in B2C simple models or something that has been already out there and we're building it for this market. But when you go with, like in our case, a new R&D approach, new market, when you put the word security intelligence, it's not as tempting as in the Israeli community. It's actually a bit tricky. So investors tend to go to something that they're more familiar with and easily invested in.
And maybe just one more word. I just want to say from my experience, we have found not a tremendous amount of high quality deal flow yet in the West Bank, but some very fantastic entrepreneurs there who are building companies that I think have the chance to become leaders in their field in the Middle East market. So I think the thing that's going to change the face of the Palestinian tech sector more than anything is as soon as there is one success story. So that's, I guess, enough on the investment thing. I just want to mention a couple people that I see in the audience might interest you to know. First of all, we talked about outsourcing and multinational companies. Yoram Yacovi, who's there until recently, headed Microsoft's R&D center. I hope you don't mind if I point you guys out, but also instrumental in doing outsourcing work, development work with Palestinians, and extremely important. In addition to all the other things he did at Microsoft, Anna Gol here runs the Palestinian internship program, which I started about 4.5 years ago, and we bring Palestinian interns to do short-term internships at multinational and Israeli companies. And they go back and end up contributing also to the development of the Palestinian tech sector. So for any companies here in Israel, please talk to Anna about hosting interns after the session. It's anna@palinternship.com. You can email her if you want. And my partner, I saw Said Nashef, if you don't mind me pointing you out. My partner in Sadara. It's been a terrific relationship, and we've been working together for just over 10 years now with Sadara. And also obviously he's been a completely instrumental guy in building up this developing ecosystem in Palestine. And also Debu Purkayasta, who has been involved with us. He's on our portfolio committee, was involved in Google and was instrumental in helping to get Google to invest in this kind of activity. If any of you or anybody else wants to make comment, let me know. So there were some other hands for questions. Yes.
My name is Nirit Harel. I own a marketing consultancy that helped a lot of startups to get started, and now mainly in the social sector. But I also chair YPO Innovation Week, which takes place in 50 places. And Yadin was with us last year. And I bring this up because the event in Israel actually brings people from lots of countries that don't have diplomatic relations with Israel. They've come from Dubai, they've come from Pakistan, they've come from Malaysia and Indonesia. And they were very interested in your space. And I wonder very quickly if you could give us, so I'm prepared, but I hope you'll come back and help us to also communicate to our investors, whether there are particular verticals and sectors that, that you've been able to pinpoint in amongst the Palestinian startups that are showing promise, and also the trajectory, because I've been to places like Ruabi that we're looking to build in partnership with Israeli high tech, some parks and things of that nature. We certainly never hear about Gaza. So could you talk to us a little bit about whether there's hope and...
Okay, great. So first of all, you triggered a few things that I should have mentioned already, but also in the...
And we want you back.
All right?
We want you back this year.
Thank you. Okay. In the spirit of full disclosure, we should mention that BTI, which Ilan explained briefly, was started by Yossi Vardi, who of course is also the godfather of DLD here in Tel Aviv. He started that together with a very senior Palestinian business person. So that was another piece of his vision. I also wanted to say a word about Gaza, that what you've heard about here so far has been really talking about the West Bank, which in a lot of senses is a very distinct ecosystem from Gaza. But and while we Sadara are not able to invest there because we can't go there, that is unfortunate, both because I think tech startups could do a lot to help the situation there too, and because from everything we hear, there is some real talent there. And there are some incubators there. There's something called the Gaza Sky Geeks. There is some startup activity, and hopefully that's part of the vision for improving the situation there. As far as your question, specific sectors, I'd say that if I'm going to generalize, what we have seen in Palestine is for the most part not kind of leading edge technology innovation, okay? This isn't someone developing the latest in AI or blockchain or cybersecurity, the sort of things you hear about the rest of the day here at DLD. It's not that for the most part. It's mainly people who are, as Hussein mentioned, bringing internet models and mobile models that have worked in just about every other part of the world, bringing them to the Middle East, okay, which is a huge and underserved market. And there's some real great businesses, and that does take a lot of innovation to figure out how to get consumers in this market to buy into those solutions. I'm sure the technology innovation will come. I don't think it's what we're seeing in the first generation of Palestinian tech companies. I'm going to try to be quick because I want to make sure if there are any other questions that we take those as well. Any more questions here? No. Okay. So let me turn back to my panelists and ask them, maybe each of them, to identify what they see as, very quickly, the two biggest challenges facing their either startup or, activity working, outsourcing with Palestinians, or, looking at the more macro level. What are the two biggest challenges you're dealing with? And what can the people here, as we saw many of them from outside of the region, presumably many from international companies, with interest in the region. Otherwise, presumably they wouldn't be here. I guess it's not for the air conditioning that you're sitting here. So what can these people do to make things better here and to increase the speed at which this Palestinian tech sector can develop? I'll take it.
Sure. Human capital, and I'll use those as, human capital and financing, human capital, training, academic education, but more on the ground job training, learning how to work in teams, how to get access to the work experience and to overcome some of the isolation, and of course funding as well, but human capital funding.
What we are trying to do is to convince the government of Israel to give 300 permissions to the high-tech employees, Palestinian employees, to work inside Israel. Nowadays, there's no even one permission. And the second issue, which we are doing our best in order to achieve, is to find a way to create a 1 year of studying and trying to bring the Palestinian level into the needed level in the Israeli companies or in the international companies.
I would agree with them. Actually, based on our experience, it's usually funding and talent or know-how. But in my opinion, the easiest way to help is always maintaining a place for a Palestinian ecosystem on the table whenever there's international opportunities. In our experience, we had a whole year where we were challenged. We couldn't raise the funding we wanted. We had one visit to the World Economic Forum. From there, that network, having that access to that network, we got 300K in grants and non-equity funding from UNICEF Innovation Fund, World Bank, USAID, DLD, PMDP. So we just were in the room. So access to the right networks would actually enable us to get the talent and the funding, something like that, actually.
And for us, I think the first one is very simple, is bureaucracy. Working permits, getting people to get to our offices for interviews, it seems it takes too much time, so things of that nature are a challenge. I think something that we had the challenge, which is shareable for most of the multinational and the startup community in Israel, is simply the lack of knowledge. There is not a location where people that just want to hire from the Palestinian Authority has the knowledge of how to do that. It always looks like very complicated, although it's very simple. So that is also a barrier to expedite this process.
Okay, great. We're just out of time. I want to just make two final comments. One is that, again, for all of you who are involved in some way in the tech ecosystem, and I guess all of you are by definition, I'm sure there are numerous things that you can do to help the development of the Palestinian tech sector. And there's a whole spectrum of activities. It can be everything from coming to visit Ramallah and see what's going on, Ramallah, Rawabi. It's partnering with a Palestinian company. It's mentoring a Palestinian entrepreneur if you have experience. It's investing in a Palestinian company. It's perhaps developing commercial relationships with a Palestinian company. And it can be acquiring a Palestinian company and maybe setting up the first R&D center of a multinational company in Palestine. There are more than 300 of those, including Microsoft, Nokia, and everybody else here in Israel, but there's zero in the West Bank or in Gaza. So give some thought to that, and I'm sure everybody here would be happy to hear what you can do to help. And I just also want to say a word of thanks to DLD for putting this subject on the agenda, because we talked about the obstacle of isolation. There's also the obstacle of ignorance or lack of awareness that this kind of thing is going on. And it's very important that people like you are exposed to and hear about the activity that's happening, because it's not the typical story that one hears about Palestine. So thank you very much to DLD, and thank you all very much for coming. And to my panelists.